what I said. When I met him, when the meeting was over, I immediately called my wife and I said, I have just met a construct. She said, what do you mean? I said, this person is not who they claim to be. Somebody has constructed this human being to be something that they are not, which is a hedge fund genius. Somebody who could understand the euro and the yen like nobody else. Bullshit. Not true.
It's our loading program.
I believe that whoever constructed Jeffrey Epstein was running multiple different programs through the same thing, having put in a large initial investment.
We can load anything from clothing.
I mean, it was a well-run operation. Obviously, it wasn't just him. Like, huge numbers of people on these islands specifically, incredibly disciplined staff. Not that I'd
It wasn't about one thing. If you build a mall, you don't just have clothing stores in the mall, you have a food court in the mall.
Clothing to equipment.
Right? You have jewelry in the mall. You have all sorts of different things in the mall. Jeffrey Epstein was a construct of something that was running multiple things. One of those things was science, and I don't think that the science and the pedophilia were necessarily in the same bucket.
Weapons. Training simulations. Anything we need.
They were presenting me with anything they could discern that I desired. Absolutely anything. I would desire some actress, for instance, and she'd just be brought in for me if I wanted.
Is it really so hard to believe?
I was being fragmented into different personalities from the time I was born. From the time I was an infant, I mean, even before the formation of any coherent personality, my experience and my sense of self was being fragmented into lots of different alters.
Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed.
The meeting, and he says, well, Eric, I was just doing some currency trading. And
there is a global satanic religion that does operate aspects of cults around the world. Whether you think that like Hillary Clinton is literally in it or not is a whole different like level of conspiracy. But like
a global satanic religion?
Oh yeah, dude. Have you gone down the satanic ritual abuse rabbit hole? It is so dark. So what I'm referring to specifically are survivors giving survivor testimony on video, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Like not like one guy came forward and said this, like there are whole support networks for these people. Like there are psychologists that specialize in SRA victims, satanic ritual abuse. And because you have to like treat them in a whole different way than a regular abuse victim, because the level of depravity and disgusting, like literal torture of children, like literal, so, your episode is so screwed now, but he was engaging in child death matches where he would be put in a cage and he would fight to the death with another child in like downtown New York in underground like parties that rich people and businessmen would attend. And then that and it sounds so insane, but when you watch it, it's like hard, and it's not like he's the only one that has claimed this. He's just one that put it all in a particularly, like lots of people have lots of claims about this kind of shit. And he also claims that then after that, he was being groomed to be an actor and he froze up in his acting interview. And so he got shifted from the acting pathway. Because these guys, like there's a fuckload of money in this community, allegedly. As in, it's tied into all of the global sex trafficking networks. Because how do you think that global trafficking sort of gets all the handlers and gets all of the sort of like operatives that run it, is you need people that were abused in order to run these things, because you need to be that kind of broken, like you need to be groomed to be able to run this without breaking it all.
Is this all like tied into like the Franklin scandal?
Similar, yeah.
I was created by a government program.
Which government program?
Monarch.
And what is Monarch?
Monarch is an operation that was created by the United States government to create spies for other countries. They use children for the purpose that they are easily integrated into multiple personalities because they can dissociate. Monarch is a program that is run by Michael Angelo Aquino, who was an Army Reserve colonel at Presidio. He is also the leader of the Temple of Set. He is also He also runs a child daycare center. He also is involved in human sacrifice.
Is he employed by the United States?
Yes,
At what facility?
Presidio, California.
Is that in San Francisco area? Presidio
Yes,
Naval Base?
yes.
Do you know what rank Michael Aquino holds?
He was a colonel.
Describe the program again, the Monarch program.
Monarch, as I said, was a program that used children to make multiple personalities for future use as spies and as a way to take over the United States government. The personalities were created at the first.
Who was intending to take over the United States government?
I do not know that information.
Did you understand Mr. Aquino to be working on behalf of the United States or against the United States?
I believed he was working on behalf of the United States.
So some segment of the United States was trying to take over the United States government?
The plan that Aquino had in it was he wanted to usher in the Antichrist, which is talked about in the Bible.
This was a government-sponsored program?
Yes.
You were 7 years old at the time that you were recruited?
I was actually 3 years old when it first began, but I was not created until later on.
Who created you?
I was created by Monarch.
Do you mean Mr. Aquino? Who in Monarch created you?
I was created by Monarch. I do not know who.
What were you told when you were 4 years old that you recall now about the Monarch program?
When I first got involved, I was molested by an airman from Offutt Air Force Base who was involved in Monarch. His job was to recruit kids from the local neighborhood who he could make dissociate by doing traumatic things to them at a very young age. Later on, when they get to school age, they would simply pick me up at school, and I would simply miss a day or two for training.
Now, is it your testimony that there was a United States plan or plot which intended to create multiple personality syndrome or dissociative personalities in children,
Yes, to my knowledge.
and that you were a victim of a plot of the United States, and that that's when your multiple personalities first began to develop?
Yes.
What is your understanding of the reason that Monarch wanted children with dissociative disorders or multiple personality disorders?
Because if one was captured in the future spying, the personality or the person that was captured would go into a personality that would have no useful information. There would be other personalities that would come out that would render the person to seem hallucinatory or to seem as if he was indeed crazy. In fact, their program, which was named Star Wars, was in fact a program in which we were taken aboard so-called alien spacecrafts which were in tunnels in Colorado, which were not real spaceships, nor were they real aliens. We were simply induced with drugs so that we would not render reality to anything that we would see. And later on, if we ever related this information, it would come out and appear as if we were crazy.
So you were trained actually to be a spy
Yes.
on behalf of the program known as Monarch,
Yes.
for the purpose of ultimately taking over the government of the United States.
Yes.
And the reason that the individuals in charge of the program wanted children with dissociative personalities or multiple personalities was so that they would not reveal the information that they gathered, if captured, in one of their other personas.
Yes, if captured or in any other normal activity.
Because you need to be that kind of broken, like you need to be groomed to be able to run this without breaking it all.
Yeah, is this all like tied into like the Franklin scandal?
Similar, yeah. So he claims he met Jeffrey Epstein on 2 occasions. He claims that he was being groomed to essentially be a handler similar to Jeffrey Epstein. And he had a really lucid description that Jeffrey Epstein was an insanely good code switcher, is what made Jeffrey unique, that he could be completely normal businessman, like banker guy right now, and then like literally turn the other way and be an absolute depraved, abusive monster, and then like right back on like the drop of a pin. And that's what made him so unique in this guy's perspective. And he kind of like had his programming, his like trauma did not work correctly. And so rather than going that route, he became a breeder. And he alleges that he was sent to a compound in Mexico where he would breed with trafficked girls all day, every single day, for like 2 or 3 years. And they would just breed and breed and breed and breed. And he alleges that that is because they were particularly interested in him because of his bloodline and his heritage as some sort of direct descendant of King Solomon.
Do you think that you were being groomed to stay in the network?
Definitely, yeah. I was supposed to be a breeder for the whole rest of my life after puberty, and I was supposed to, in the cult network way of looking at things, I was supposed to be programming others to have similar experiences, to be breeders themselves. It was perceived in me that I would make a very good handler myself, that I would make a very good programmer. And so a lot of my training was in that direction as well.
It's not something that could be done by a simple mind.
You think he did it?
Oh, he has a team of manipulators?
No, when I say I think he was a construct, I literally mean that. I think he was constructed, like fitted with a story.
Oh, so you think he was a plant?
No, I think he was a construct.
What's that? Okay, you're going to have to dig into it.
I think Jeffrey Epstein, super genius financier, was not a thing that existed.
I was being fragmented into different personalities from the time I was born. From the time I was an infant, I mean, even before the formation of any coherent personality, my experience and my sense of self was being fragmented into lots of different alters. So one thing that would happen if I started telling, about a certain torture experience or a certain, sexual experience that I had had, that aspect of me that was telling would be shamed and punished and banished and made into a separate altar that I wasn't supposed to access. So I have many dozens of altars, some of them quite well thought out and with a lot of thought put into them. And some of them just sort of stopgap experiences, like, oh, that was just a shut up altar, and it's like, it's a named individual within me, but its entire purpose is just to stop some certain story from coming out.
He was funding all sorts of people. I don't think everybody at that, part of the problem with calling his plane the Lolita Express and calling his island Pedophile Island is that you just can't see all the different things that were going through this guy.
This isn't real. What is real?
I was brought all over the world, and different people were brought to me also, because this breeding process is very intricate. It's very delicate. They do a tremendous amount of genealogical research. They have agents all over the globe who are looking for certain bloodlines, but also certain psychic characteristics. Other kinds of, I'm not privy to everything they're looking for, obviously. But this is a very global program. And so I would sometimes, if it was deemed helpful to their plans, I'd be brought to other places, other countries, or they would bring in women and girls from outside the US to me.
And like, okay, so genealogically, you're Jewish mostly?
Mostly. Yeah, according to Ancestry.com, like 95% or 90 something percent Ashkenazi Jewish, yeah.
And so,
My name is Alex Wick. I'm Anna's ex-husband. I lived with her for 11 months. And I believe her story, it follows. She's likely related to Jeffrey Epstein. Her father is likely Jeff's brother or cousin. I mean, go follow her on TikTok. She's way more reach than I do. But yeah, just stopping in here to say I believe her. I've known her really well, intimately, for a while. Her story, it adds up. It sounds crazy, but if you think about it, Jeffrey Epstein had no kids, allegedly. The guy who had a breeding ranch in New Mexico and was obsessed with eugenics has no children. That just doesn't make sense. Anyway, tell the FBI to investigate.
And then they started sending me to a breeding compound.
a breeding compound?
Yeah.
Okay. What is that? I can guess, but
it's a dedicated facility for breeding human people. In my case, this was in Jalisco in Mexico.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So I'd be brought down there once I hit puberty, and I was on all sorts of steroids and aphrodisiacs and drugs, and it's a very intensive physical program that they put you through when you're slated to be a breeder. They try to induce puberty as early as possible, and they put you on different sexual enhancement drugs and different mind-numbing drugs, and it really turns you into all you can think about is sex. It's because of all the drugs that you're on and the environment that you're in. And that's the idea. If you're in a breeder role, you just basically have sex constantly, or you're raped, more properly, just every day, all day. So that was the case for me.
How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
They took me to private islands in the Bahamas, showed me basically how some of the trainers were living.
would that be like the Jeffrey Epstein Island?
Among others, yeah.
You were there.
I was there. It was a well-run operation. Obviously, it wasn't just him. Like, huge numbers of people on these islands specifically. Incredibly disciplined staff. Not that I'd want to use discipline for things like that, but...
No, but there's a lot of science behind it, and it's, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
That the staff is very well disciplined, like everybody knows exactly what they do, and it works.
Yeah.
I think there was a time when people said collusion or coordination, the presumption was, well, that's pretty far out there. We now know, like post Elon Musk's $44 billion adventure at Twitter, that there are these coordinating groups, coordinating social media with the intelligence community or with the Department of Homeland Security or with the State Department. We now know that we're living in an orchestrated, curated, choreographed world. And we can't know it officially, but we all know it if we want to know, which is hysterical. Now we have to talk about, well, are you a conspiracy theorist? Like, I read the Slack messages. I read the emails. What are you even talking about?
So I can't speak that much to him because I never had that much of his attention. It's just like sizing me up for something and then immediately on to the next person. So
interesting things is that he was beckoning into a world that didn't seem to exist but for him as the doorman. I think that's one of the things that freaked out a lot of these rich people is that he felt rich in a movie sense, which is not something that you find among actually rich people.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of very wealthy people don't own an island. Islands are really tough to maintain. I'm obsessed with islands, and in general, I have to be obsessed with islands that have airports run by other people because they have populations on them. But every rich person starts to wonder, can I afford an island, or how many jets? And if you look at Jeffrey Epstein's wealth, it was like gold beaten into gold foil so that it could cover a vast area and leave the impression of a solid gold life. But it was really probably on a mid 9-figure fortune that had been used to buy islands and planes, which is not what any 9-figure person is going to do.
This is at the time when you're a teenager and you're being enticed, you're being shown what you can have. Basically, if you follow along, you can be like him.
Yeah. Needless to say, that was not so appealing to me, but it's really gross. I mean, the amount of wealth that was just on display. I mean, literally anything you want. I could have owned my own island if I wanted,
My take on it instantly was, this is not an actual human. This is a construct of someone's. Someone has created a fake human being called Jeffrey Epstein.
And he owned it at that time, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And you came across him too, by any chance?
I did. I didn't get that close to him personally. I would just see him around.
Was a mysterious currency trading financier with crazy rules so that no one would ever invest with him. And I think that was to keep people from seeking his investment services. I mean, he's labeled disgraced financier, but nobody has a record of trading with him. He was sitting there, he comes into the meeting and he says, well, Eric, I was just doing some currency trading. And I thought about that scene that you sometimes see and as a meme with Steve Buscemi with a skateboard over his shoulder.
Hello, fellow teenagers. Hello, fellow financial traders.
So I'm thinking, you don't really look like a rich guy who trades in markets.
Well, there's a complex relationship between hypnotic suggestions and programming to commit suicide and the practical need of the cult to keep people alive to use them. So there's this push-pull that a lot of us, especially when we're born into it, I mean, we experience this from birth, where we're being told to kill ourselves and to live at all costs at the same time. And that's part of the cognitive dissonance and the psychic torture aspect of it, just a glimpse.
I don't think almost any of those scientists are exposed, maybe a few of them, but very few of them, to anything really horrible. I think he was trying to keep a periscope on everything that was interesting.
I mean, when I was being taken to these islands, I would see all kinds of popular and famous people.
Something that would normally be fascinating. Imagine, for example, you had a story where you could get a Pulitzer Prize for breaking it. Everybody cares. You'd sell papers like hotcakes, blah, 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 and nobody wants to report on it. And it's like right there. You could just ask the dumbest questions and it would, like, New York Times says, disgraced financier. Well, tell me, did you find his prime broker? Did you find the forms? Did you go to his offices in Villard House? No, nobody does, ever. The story is anti-interesting, and it's very different than being uninteresting.
Which would suggest more collusion, more coordination.
Hello?
About Epstein himself, he was really able to switch on a dime from, absolute murderous rage killing to just completely pleasant and like affable. And I guess his programming was more successful than mine. He was very quick on his feet and totally changed to suit the situation always.
So you had a felt sense, an embodied sense of discomfort?
Oh, hell yeah.
And where did that come from?
the fact that he had a lipstick camera pointed at me from an art object, that he laid a table that was preposterously long and thin with a tablecloth made of an American flag to make it look like a coffin so that I would spill my coffee on the flag of my own country. I mean, the fact that he looked like a mutant Ralph Lauren with this kind of lubricious quality, and he's talking all of the science and market stuff, and nothing adds up, and there's an heiress bouncing on his knee to get her boobs to jiggle to see whether it can distract. I mean, it's like one of these crazy scenes where nothing about it was normal. There was no trace of a normal world.
That's probably why he was in the role that he was in. Yeah, I remember that about him. Tremendously versatile, and very good code switcher, and just really, he could deal with the high-minded and the low-minded, and just kind of bring everybody to their basis level and send them on their way to to experience whatever horrible things they might want. So
this was intended to be terrifying. It wasn't an accident. It was intended to be as fascinating as it could possibly be, which it was, and terrifying at the same time. And it achieved both objectives. I mean, I was given an opportunity to meet him again. I didn't know what to do. I mean, the other thing that I just found really weird is that he knew about my research. And it turned out that he was connected to my graduate department at Harvard. So he had a connection to the Harvard math department, unbeknownst to me. I don't know when that began. I know two of the professors he was connected through. But this is some unholy story. It has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. It has to do with whatever this thing was. We tripped over a thing. We tripped over a structure. We named the structure Jeffrey Epstein.
What is the matrix? Control.
I was born into a satanic family, so this was on both sides of the family. Yeah, I was being trained for a wide variety of things. Most obviously to accept sexual violence, to perpetrate sexual violence, to accept and to perpetrate physical violence. I was being trained as a killer. I was being trained also as a breeder for the cult. So I was supposed to create many children, and I did create many children after I passed through puberty later on.
So this is now you're talking, after you passed through puberty, so this is in your teens now.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I'm just saying I was basically being trained for constant sexual activity from the moment I was born, like absolutely constant. And that was normalized as much as possible in my household.
Peer review is this fake thing that supposedly stretches back to the founding of the Royal Society, and it's very clear from the scholarship around it that it comes out of a period between 1965 and 1975, initiated by the Medicare Act, predicated on the need for editors for the journal expansion founded by Pergamon Press and Robert Maxwell. By 1975, there's a giant battle between the NSF and both fiscal and cultural conservatives against something called Man, A Course of Study, or MACOS, where peer review was born in a Utah clinic, came out of the medical literature because the federal government in 1965 with the Medicare Act picked up the need to pay for so many medical procedures. They wanted to say, why are we assigning this many medical procedures? The doctors circled the wagons and said, we will peer review each other. Then by 1975, the NSF was under the microscope, and they used peer review as a self-defense of last resort to say, we will be reviewing each other, right? Peer review is a myth. The scholarship is clear as day. And I think that his girlfriend's father, Robert Maxwell, was all through scientific publishing. And I think Pergamon Press was, in part, a control mechanism for making sure that revolutionary discoveries were taking place within a framework.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
And you can look at it, you can Google it. I can give you 1 million search terms, and every time I give 1 million search terms, you'll watch my reputation get torn apart. Jeffrey Epstein, who is not a disgraced financier, the newspapers that have always had a national interest component and have liaisons so that they can work with the CIA and the State Department, and they do each other's bidding and scratch each other. This whole network.
And so in the network setting, in the back, like say, backstage, these are SRA families, so it's the sex trafficking. Was there other stuff happening already at a very young age as well?
Yeah, a wide variety of torture and abuse was happening. I suppose I can just get right into it since we're here for this purpose. Yeah, I witnessed not just sex trafficking, but a lot of different types of violence and torture. Yeah, some of it lethal to the participants, murders. So that was also happening.
This whole network is what I've called managed reality. We live in managed reality. We are all in some version of the Truman Show.
I was born into a satanic family, so this was on both sides of the family, going back quite a few generations, as far as I'm aware. Probably going back many generations, but it gets difficult to know. In her front life, sometimes with other survivors, I'll say front life and back life. So the front life is kind of your public life that everybody sees, and your back life is what most people don't see and where a lot of the abuse happens. So in front life, my mother was a sex worker. Yeah, by choice. I mean, supposedly. In back life, she was a slave to some other members of her family and also non-family members who were part of the cult networks. So it's very complex. And my father, in front life, was one of her clients. And they never had any formal relationship. But it's since come to my understanding that he was also from a bloodline that the cult network was interested in. And so their pairing was arranged behind the scenes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know I've also observed that the people that when they took an interest in me, they first had to know about my blood, which I didn't know anything about. And I don't even know what they did and how they measured it, and I know that you even have a very unusual blood type, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, AB negative, which certain aspects of the network take a very deep interest in, unfortunately for me. Yeah.
So did you grow up with just your mother, or?
In front life, yes, it was primarily me and my mother, and that's essentially what I was coached to say. You know, I live in a single parent home with my mother. In reality, I was surrounded by people all the time, other handlers in the cult network and different types of sex workers. And I was made to be a sex worker or sex trafficked. So there were a lot of different kinds of adults around. And so some of them...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and some of them had family roles with me, or they would play the roles of certain family figures.
Oh, I see. But you were trafficked right from when you were very young?
Yes, I was.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So that was your first role, because your mother even, publicly was a sex worker, and then you immediately got sex trafficked.
Yes.
Oh, with your mother as a sex worker, it's kind of normalized already, yeah?
Yeah.
But she also had a nonprofit.
Yeah. She did. She also did a lot of really good work, actually, as a civil rights activist on behalf of people with mental disabilities, especially people who had been brain damaged by psychiatric practices like electroshock therapy.
How interesting.
Yeah. So that's, well, I don't want to just let it flow, see what happens. Yeah, the cult network uses electricity, electric torture, electroshock quite pervasively.
Yeah.
So that was the case for my mother, it was the case for me.
And me.
Sorry to hear that. But then also in Front Life, she went through medically prescribed, like mainstream psychiatric electroconvulsive therapy, which is a whole different thing, similar and related. I mean, part of the idea with that was that it would discredit her.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stigma associated with mental health treatment.
Of course, yeah.
So, in spite of the fact that her issues came from her circumstances, you know, she was kind of isolated and made to feel crazy, and went through quite a few mental health treatment experiences, mainstream ones. Some of those were before I was born. So I don't, I wasn't there for some of them, but she went through many electroconvulsive therapy treatments at psychiatric hospitals, in addition to what was happening at home and in the background. Yeah, it was made clear to me from the age that I could even hold the thought that my mother was a token and a pawn, and I mean, she would be raped in front of me and beaten in front of me, and you know, it was, yeah, I mean, they wanted me to know that she, you know, was at the beck and call of others. Yeah.
And then you're getting the message that you don't have a mother.
Also.
Mm-hmm. So were some of the handlers perhaps better parental figures, or?
I guess in some senses, yeah, some of them were more coherent. And so I was able to bond with them more consistently. That's true. Yeah.
But the rape was coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
They were all guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
The normalization of that sexuality with children, you know. In my public role, I was even supposed to promote that, promote the sexualization. But you were supposed to be doing that very much behind the scenes, being an object as well as a perpetrator, and you were...
It must be very unfortunate in some regards for whoever it was, if that's true, that was in charge of this construction, that it became that people got T-shirts with his name printed on them.
But this was already going wrong in the early 2000s. You see, my sense of this is that this was a pre-internet plan that lived into the internet age and couldn't survive contact with the internet age.
What did the internet bring in that didn't allow it to survive?
Eyeballs, discussion.
Level of surveillance.
Well, you know, there's a claim that nobody cares about Jeffrey Epstein because it's this many years later and we've all moved on. Yeah, that's completely untrue. And we know that it's true because if you start talking about Jeffrey Epstein, the engagement goes up. So you have these fictions, like, you know, that are put out by mainstream media or traditional news desks, which is, nobody cares about that story. Well, that you can see from social media that that's not true, from the internet. So the internet is constantly providing an ability to check whether or not these claims from inside the structure are true. And Jeffrey Epstein is an example of what I've called an anti-interesting phenomenon.
as I approached being an older teenager, after I'd been a breeder for already 3 or 4 years, when I was around 16, it was made clear to me that they wanted me to assume positions of authority and greater power, that they wanted me to become a handler and a programmer, maybe someone like Louis, someone who could, basically they saw that I had great aptitude for training, for teaching, for guiding, and they wanted to use that to guide people into these forms of depravity. And for that to work, it became increasingly important for them to have my consent, because you can't, essentially they couldn't trust me to do the job unsupervised unless they had my full consent. I mean, full, I don't know about full, but they had to ensure that I wasn't just doing it because I was being coerced. It had to come from inside me. I mean, any teacher of anything who's good at what they do will tell you that's necessary for teaching, regardless of the subject, regardless of whether it's ethical or not.
Yeah.
So I think there's some wisdom there. So essentially there were a period of years, especially it was very heavy when I was about 15, 16, where they were presenting me with anything they could discern that I desired, absolutely anything. I mean, I would desire some actress, for instance, and she'd just be brought in for me to rape if I wanted, or anything that I thought of. I mean, like, oh, you want to.
Or speaking within the narrow confines of your breeder training, of course,
Yeah.
like you desire, but then you're completely programmed. So,
this is true. I mean, desire. I eventually learned that my desires were much broader than I had been led to believe, thankfully, and I appreciate that grounding.
His island, particularly, if he sized you up for something and he went immediately on to the next, that was on his island.
Yeah.
So this is at the time when you're a teenager and you're being enticed, you're being shown what you can have. Basically, if you follow along, you can be like him.
Yeah. Needless to say, that was not so appealing to me, but it's really gross. I mean, the amount of wealth that was just on display. I mean, literally anything you want. I could have owned my own island if I wanted, if I cared about that sort of stuff more. I'd probably still be in the cult, but thankfully I don't. So basically it came to a point where they just couldn't use me anymore without consent, or not for any role that they would want me for. Essentially, they basically said, "We're done with you, unless you want to join and make this your own thing."
Yeah, so I've heard about like the 5 I wills, in the programming that the children, go through these steps, and normally at 13 is the last I will, and then the 13 is then the age that they become, let's say, willing participants in all the harm.
I guess that rings true for me, because they were trying to convince me very aggressively from 13 to 16 to convert, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like I was innocent at this time.
Very powerful people at JP Morgan told me I needed to meet him. He didn't want to talk about finance. He wanted to talk about science. I just spent 5 days in the physics department. I'm not allowed to say that it was 5 days in the physics department as a visitor. I gave a talk. I'm not allowed to say that I gave a talk. I don't know what this is.